I have to learn how to be still. Hello, everyone, and welcome to LaKesha and Friends. And I'm so happy to have my friend from Alabama, Girard Warren, on today. And we were on a panel once together and really have a lot of synergy. The people who were on the panel with us didn't quite agree.
Not at all.
But please introduce yourself to our guest today.
Hi, everybody out there. My name is Girard Warren. I'm from Greenville, Alabama. I'm 39 years of age. I'm a personal trainer here in Montgomery, Alabama. Also, I referee college basketball, and I have my own podcast called Pandemonium. Right now, we're in between season one and season two. Well, I say we. I'm in between season one and season two. I just want to take a break and kind of reinvent my podcast. But hey, everybody, how y'all doing out there?
Awesome. So it's so excited to have you on today because on your podcast, like you basically talk about any and everything, which is one of the reasons why I love it. And I wanted to have you on to talk about voting. And before the show started, we were talking about the rich history that Alabama has as far as fighting for the right to vote, and how you position that next to the low voter turnout in the state of Alabama. And you would think with people, using the argument, your ancestors fought and died for you to have the right to vote, that in the place where they fought and died for us to have the right to vote, that voter turnout would be higher. Why do you think like it isn't?
Well, like I was saying before we came on air, I don't understand why voter registration. Well, I have an idea, but the reason why our voter registration is so low, just to go ahead and to jump on answer your question, is because that we feel like our vote don't count, and it's more so on the national level than it is on the local level. Because on the national level, the way the electoral college is set up, especially here in Alabama, we see that this is basically a Republican state, and that me being Democratic, well, voting Democratic in most elections, that I can go vote, but it still doesn't count towards anything because of the way the electoral college is set up. Now, I would also like to say that like I don't understand why it's low, because me living here in Montgomery, close to Selma and things like that, we have a rich history of fighting for these fundamental rights that we have as Black people, and for some reason, um, I guess our ancestors or whatever dying is not good enough for us. Like I don't understand it personally, like I said, but just to see the fight that they had in them, and for us not to continue that fight. When I say that, not all, but when I say that, I mean because of the low turnout. But for us to not continue that, it really baffles me. And there's one thing that I wish that we could build in our community is to get out and to vote, and really see that it means a lot just for you to get up and fight those long lines, or whatever you have to do to make sure you vote.
Yeah, and I think that the statement that you made really made sense to me when you said, because on the national scale, when people see or hear that Alabama is a red state, then you think, well, oh, because if I cast my vote, like it's still going to be red anyway, it doesn't matter. But people don't look at the impact of local elections. Like you guys were able to elect Steve Reed. It seems like your Board of Education is becoming more progressive. So when people do actually get involved, you do see more diverse leadership. So do you think that we have to have more conversations around like local elections rather than making the conversation always about, these national issues that people feel disconnected from?
Yeah, we definitely have to start making our focus on local elections, because I mean that would really affect us immediately. Just because we're here, like here in Montgomery, to have the first Black president, chief of police, um, DA, and all that stuff that's here. That we're in position now, but at the same time, now that we have these people in position, the people in position have to do right. at the
Right.
same time. But with saying that is that we as Black people have to give them the opportunity to mess up like we have done others and stuff. So, it's going to take some patience between both, our people that we put in place and also between their constituents as well. But back in my hometown, we had a mayor's race between basically a Black candidate, Crum, and a white incumbent,
Mm.
and it was good to see that even though the turnout was still low, it was good to see that a lot of people who had never voted before participated in this that election, and so that shows me and lets me know that there is actual hope for us, that people are starting to see the importance of voting, because he only lost by 300 votes,
Oh, wow.
which was really great. But people, and I also found out that people are not aware of the voting process too.
Mm.
So now I did find that out, and that hurt me the most, because I had some voter registration drives and stuff like that, and I didn't, and people didn't understand actually how the process even worked. And I ain't talking about, younger people. I'm also talking about people our age and stuff like that, who should have been part of the progress for, I guess I've been voting for 20 years, now 21 years or whatever. And like I said, that was the first time, but they didn't understand the process of of voting. And that kind of, it hit me hard, because it was like, yeah, I'm out here trying to get these people to register and stuff, but at the same time, they're not educated on how this process actually works. So that's another thing we're gonna have to do.
That's very true, because I was listening to MSNBC a few weeks ago, and there was a professional athlete on there, and he was talking about how some of them don't vote because they're intimidated and they don't know what happens like in the voting booth. And I was just like that was just kind of shocking to me, because, and I guess like growing up, like in my family, like voting is just something that you do. Like every
Right.
election, like we vote. Like it's not a question of, are you going to vote? It's like, oh yeah, this is election day. Like, you don't even know like who's on the ballot, but you know that you're going to vote for
Right.
somebody. And it's just amazing that like there are people who are like our age, like in their 30s, 40s, and they've never voted before, and they don't know what the process is like. And now they get to the age where they're afraid to ask because they know that they should know. And so then they just don't participate in the process. So how do you think like we can change that? Like, how do you explain to people like what voting is all about?
First, we have to let people know, like, this is nothing to be embarrassed about because you ask questions. That goes back until when you was in school and you was afraid to raise your hand to ask a question because you thought it would be a dumb question. But to me, no question is dumb, especially when you don't know. But then there's also ways that you can ask on the side or whatever. But it's up to basically us, different organizations, our churches and stuff, to really get out in our community, to really get out in the community and educate these people on the process. I've read somewhere, I can't remember exactly where it was, where people was going up to vote, and you had basically people out standing out front intimidating them, and
Mm-hmm.
the people got so scared that a couple of them actually turned around and went the other way because they were scared and
Wow.
stuff like that. And so going in and educating the people on the candidates, that's one thing. Letting them know about the different amendments and things that may be on the ballot and stuff, educating them on that. So once they do get there, all their questions are answered by the time they get to the voting place. And that's what my focus has turned to, is just actually educating people on the different candidates, the amendments and different things that may be on the ballot. Because I can remember when I first started voting, they had amendments on the ballot, but I didn't know I don't know what this is for. I see vote yes in people yards, vote no in people yard, but it was just like, okay, I saw this in my mom yard, so I'm just gonna vote yes, or whatever the case may be. But we really have to get out and educate people on these different topics.
Yeah, and I think that that's so key, because I know like in the small town I grew up, Evergreen, which is, close to Greenville. I remember there was a group who shall remain nameless, but they would put out like sample ballots that would basically have like, it check like, who and what you should vote for. And I thought that like, I understood their intention with doing that, but I thought it did people a real disservice, because then like people didn't have to do any of their own homework to actually identify, does this candidate actually represent, my position? Because we know, especially in the South, there are some people who run on the Democratic ticket that are not actually Democrats. So
Right.
once you like start to look into like their background and you look into how they vote, just because they're on one side of the ticket doesn't mean that they actually represent your interests. And we haven't really done a good job of voter education. We're great at registering people, but then teaching them like, how do you research candidates? How do you find out what these amendments are? I think we've just done a horrible job with that.
I definitely agree with that, man. And like I say, that is definitely my focus now, is actually educating people on the candidates, and also the different amendments. But also we have to make our candidates make them show their face in public.
Yeah.
To come out and shake hands with the people, and shoot your commercial or whatever you have to do. Just don't hide behind, this is my name. I work at such and such, such and such, and I've been in this system for so long. And yeah, that does sound good, but actually give us a platform. What's your agenda? And that's as Black people, next election, the general election, that should be also our focus too. I don't care if it is a Democratic candidate. We need to say, hey, we hear you, but what exactly is your agenda for us now? It's kind of too late for this one. We can't really question Biden in this one.
Yes,
I mean,
like, you got two choices at this.
right. So right now we only got two choices, but for future references, for future elections and stuff, we definitely have to, hey man, when there's 5 or 6 candidates out there, hey man, what is your agenda, man? What are you gonna look out for us? What is my specific need? What is our community specific needs, and how are you gonna help us with our specific needs? And that's definitely something that we have to push out in our community now.
And you said something a few minutes ago. Shameless plug, my best friend has an online show called Anti-Cancel Culture. And you were talking about, holding people accountable. Like, we have such a bad habit of canceling people. Like, as soon as you do one thing wrong, then it's like, oh, we're done with you. Whereas in Alabama, like, Roy Moore was almost elected, and this man, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, he was like one of the grimiest, like, you could possibly find. But their party was like, yo, like, this is our candidate and this is who we're about to rock with. Like, whereas we have like this purity test that if you don't agree with me, like, on everything that I believe, and if you haven't, made any mistakes in your entire life, then I'll vote for you. And that's why, like, a lot of times we end up like suppressing the vote, because we focus so much on the negatives and people's personal lives, and not really looking at like, okay, but what's their professional record? Like, what are they actually doing in the community, and recognizing like people make mistakes.
Right. The cancel culture is definitely a culture that is, in my opinion, horrible. I don't know if I put it on Facebook or I put it on Twitter, but I hate the cancel culture now. And for some reason, Black people are like, our candidate has to be perfect. Like, even like we were talking about Black-owned businesses and stuff. We go to a Black-owned business, they make one mistake, and I'm not going there no more. The food was cold and blah blah blah. When McDonald's and Applebee's literally mess up your order every freaking time you go in there. And so, like, this cancel culture is something that's in us now. I hate it. I don't understand why we just so quick to cancel people after just one mistake. Um, it's really, I wish, I'm against it, and I've been trying to shoot down. All right, so what? Such and such said something wrong. That's how they felt at the time. Let them sit back and get an opportunity to read or whatever, and come back to us and tell us like, hey, okay, I was wrong, but we don't have to cancel them. Like, I want to see that show too, of your friend, but because I would love to see that, because that's the cancel culture in our community now is absolutely one of the worst things that has happened to us in the last year or so.
Yeah. Yeah, because like to me, especially like when it was, Donald Trump and Hillary, and people were like, well, they're essentially the same. And I was like, no, they're not, because one has character issues and one makes bad decisions.
Right.
And you can have like good character and have good intentions and make bad decisions versus having like bad character, which means like you're probably not going to make good decisions. You might make a few good decisions, but because like your heart is not in the right place. And I don't think like we do enough of that, like looking at a person and see like, okay, did they make a bad decision because they're a bad person and they were being malicious, or based on the information they had at the time, this is what they thought was the best decision. And I don't think like we do like that type of analysis. It's just like, oh, they said this and I don't like it, so I'm done with
Right.
it.
And we do that. Like with the Hillary, man, Trump is just not a good person. And,
Right.
and I don't care what you try to say, his policies and stuff like that. He says things, everything he said, he mean. He does things and he mean it. And it just he's a bad person. He's just rotten to the core, in my opinion. But then we also have somebody like Hillary, who may not have good intentions. Well, who may not have bad intentions on things. The things just didn't turn out to the way they thought it would be. If we
Right.
go back to the oh man, the three strike rule. I can't think of the actual policy is now. But if we go back to even that, I was watching a documentary and they just came out and told you, like, even people, Democrats that's in place now, was still in place. They said, hey, we didn't see the loophole. We didn't see all it. We didn't think this all the way through. We were just trying to stop, you know,
Um, yeah.
the drugs and the violence that was going on, but we didn't see how it would be damaging to that. And and she came back and apologized. Bill came back and apologized. Joe Biden came back and apologized. One of the representatives in New York, he came back and apologized. And he said, "Hey man, we were wrong." But all we saw was, "Oh man, they did us this way," and now we won't even forgive them for something that they did 30 years ago. And I like, I'm 39 now. I hate for people to hold on to something I did when I was 20.
Right. Like, that's why I said, like, if all of our lives were under a microscope for, positions that came up, like a lot of us would be unemployed right now.
Right.
So, and I know that because I've had people on my timeline disagree with me because they're like, oh, their decisions affect policy or what have you. But again, like, I think that we just have to, one, understand like how this whole political process works, because it's not like a fill in the blank. This is a multiple choice, and you got like A or B. And I think that we just have to do a better job of weighing our options versus like seeking this perfect candidate. So
Right.
I'm not gonna get a bunch of comments about that, but y'all gonna be all right. So I told y'all I'll only keep you for a few minutes. So what before we go, what advice do you give, or how are you encouraging people to get out to vote? What are you telling them to make them feel like, yes, I gotta go vote?
Okay. The thing I'm doing right now is just I'm trying my best to put out as much information as I can for everybody. Once again, like I stated, that right now I'm into educating people on the process, the candidates, the amendments, and everything. And I'm actually sitting down having conversation with people and letting them know that, hey, regardless of what you think, your person may lose or may have lost the election, but your voice still matters. I said, whether they're looking at these numbers, and like you say, we just lost an election in Greenville by 300. So it went from thousands, well, nobody even running against them, to somebody running who's getting beat by 1,000. Now we're down to 300. So that letting you know that we having this shift. Even for here in Alabama to have Doug Jones in his position here, well, that was definitely not even nowhere near thought that would ever happen.
Right.
So like making people aware of those things, and the landscape that's going on, even around the country. Like we can even go back to where Hillary won the um, popular vote, but she just lost the electoral college. And that's even unheard of in situations like that. So right now we're just trying to make people aware, trying to get people still registered, trying to make people aware and also educated on this process, man. And it's a fight that we're gonna have to fight. It's not gonna end in this November. We cannot let it end in this November because we still got babies that's growing up, and we having to educate them. Unfortunately, they got parents and stuff right now who don't believe in the process. So we got to go back to the high school level, middle school level, and also educate them from that point. So once they do turn 18 and they off at college and everything, that they can understand the importance of voting, and hopefully they can change their mind or whoever in their community who's always said, "Hey man, what you voting for? It don't count," and stuff like that. So putting out a lot of positive energy, a lot of positive image into our communities, and letting them know, man, hey, man, this is a process that actually works. It can work, and it's on us to flip the thing to the way we actually can see a change in our community, and make sure you're demanding everything out of your candidates that you want and need in your community. And don't just sit back and say, "Oh, I voted such and such in, and I'm just gonna sit back and watch." Now, no, you still have to hold them responsible. Even if your guy lose, whoever in that position, you still need to sit up there and attend these different city council meetings or whatever to make sure that they are doing something for our agenda, or to help our community out.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This conversation went way too fast, but so much information, and keep doing what you're doing, because even though Alabama may be a red state when it comes to national elections, we have so much power, like you said, when it comes to local elections. And most of what affects our day-to-day lives comes through our local governments and our state governments. So we can't just look at the president, but we also have to hold our mayors and city councils and commissioners and police chiefs and board of education. Like, there's so many other things that affect us that we have to look at outside of just the presidential. So thank you so much. Now we can go back to looking for the Breonna Taylor verdict.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me, man. I enjoyed it as always, man. Hopefully when I start back, I'll bring you on my podcast and we can continue this conversation.
Yes, you guys follow him. And on Monday, I think you're doing them like on Monday evenings.
Well, I was doing it on Mondays. Football season's here now, so you can't compete. You cannot compete with football in the state of Alabama. So it's going to be moved to Wednesday. We're going to start around I can't remember, is that mid-October, right? While the election's getting hot. So follow me, Girard Warren on Facebook. It's also on Spotify, Pandemonium podcast. But thank you, and you'll be hearing from me soon.
All right, sounds great. All right, y'all have a great day.
All right, y'all have a good one.